This week on Adventist News Network, 2 years after a devastating earthquake, an update on recovery in Haiti.
A top civilian honor for former church president Jan Paulsen.
And our commentator makes the case for more missionaries.
These stories and more coming up.
This is Adventist News Network, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church. Thanks for joining us this week.
First in the news, Adventist World Church President Ted Wilson encouraged Haitians during a recent visit to the Caribbean island nation. Libna Stevens has this story.
We're here in Port-au-Prince 2 years after the devastating earthquake hit on January 2010. The Adventist Church here remains faithful and it has welcomed Pastor Wilson with open arms from the northern tip of the country to the southern part.
Adventist World Church President Ted Wilson made an official visit to Haiti last week. Accompanied by his wife Nancy and Inter-American church leaders, Pastor Wilson addressed more than 24 TV, radio, and print reporters during a special press conference at the Toussaint Louverture International Airport in Port-au-Prince. Pastor Wilson told the press that his visit was one to spend quality time with members, visit institutions, and encourage members in Haiti to cling to the Word of God. He also took time to pray with members of the media. His 3-day visit to the country included a trip to Cap Haitian in the north, where the Adventist message entered the island nation in 1905. He and church leaders were met by its 3 mayors, the press, and hundreds of church leaders, pathfinders, and church members. It was the first visit to Cap Haitian ever made by an Adventist World Church president. Mayor Wilbrod Bion welcomed Pastor Wilson and gave him a key to the city. Hundreds packed the Temple Adventiste No. 1, the oldest Adventist church in Cap Haitian, to hear Pastor Wilson's message of hope. Church leaders continue the tour to the Haiti Adventist University in Dikini, Carrefour, where more than 25,000 displaced persons found refuge there after the earthquake hit. Mayor of Carrefour, Yvonne Jerome, handed the key to the city to Pastor Wilson and praised the work of the Adventist Church and the university during the months and year after the devastating earthquake. Thousands of students and faculty staff welcomed the Adventist president during a special chapel session. The first stone was laid to begin the construction of a new men's dormitory on campus. Pastor Wilson also toured the dozens of one-day structures built by Maranatha International on campus. Visits also included the Adventist Hospital, Adra Haiti office, Adventist radio station, and other churches.
Close to 300,000 Adventists live in Haiti. They continue to rebuild churches and schools with the help of Maranatha International, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, and offering from Adventist Worldwide. For more on the progress of the church in Haiti, visit interamerica.org.
A veteran church leader, Jan Paulsen, received one of his home country's top civilian honours recently. The former Adventist Church president was appointed Commander of the Royal Norwegian Order of Merit for humanitarian service. The recognition is given to foreign and Norwegian nationals as a reward for outstanding service in the interest of Norway. Officials say Paulsen will accept the insignia of the order at a presentation ceremony later this year.
This year, the church is enrolling a major survey of Adventist opinions, attitudes, and spiritual life patterns. Church researcher David Trim says leaders want a clearer understanding of what's happening in the church, not just what they wish was happening. They want to back up their best ideas and instincts with hard data, collected in all 13 of the church's world regions until early 2013. You can join in the project by participating in an anonymous survey if researchers contact your church.
Church members worldwide are mourning a beloved missionary and church leader this week. Eric Monnier passed away in Cologne, France, following a battle with cancer. He was just 59. Monnier's work helped spur church growth in South America in the 1970s and 80s. He and his wife, Françoise, spent 3 years on a mission boat along the Amazon River in Brazil. The couple later served in the church in Bangladesh, where colleagues remember Monnier's humour, enthusiasm and great generosity.
French-speaking Adventists in Europe recently participated in region-wide Bible puzzle competitions. Church youth leaders there are reporting that the events brought church members together to share and learn from one another. Youth Director Pierrot Jasson from the Versailles Adventist Church says the event there covered topics such as geography, music, and general knowledge, and included Sudoku and crossword puzzles.
Record in Focus reported this week that the Adventist Church in Australia has joined other Christian denominations in adopting the National Council of Churches Safe Church Training Manual. As stories of misconduct surface worldwide, the Church in the South Pacific wants to be proactive about protecting children at church. Already the Adventist Church in northern New South Wales is using the manual to train local church leaders.
So they go back and will operate as safer people, but they also spread the word, we need a safe church. So they will become evangelistic around safety, but it gives them skills and awareness they simply wouldn't have had before.
The church in North America today is sending fewer volunteers overseas than it did historically. As the number of volunteers dwindles in North America, regions like South America and the South Pacific are seeing their mission programs grow. I sat down with John Thomas earlier today to learn more about current trends in mission service and where the greatest needs still lie. John, thank you for joining us. Traditionally, Adventist missionaries, volunteers have come from the North American division, from North America, but we're starting to see those numbers shift. What does this trend mean for the church?
Well, it means actually there's some goodness to it, and that is it's showing that people are willing to come from other parts of the world to go and serve as missionaries or volunteers, which is a new thing. They are no longer having to rely only on resources from North America.
And what are some of the areas where volunteers, missionaries are needed? Traditionally in the past we've heard the 1040 window. What are some of the areas where there's need?
Well, from the volunteer standpoint, the biggest need are for those who are willing to just go and use whatever talents they have. To help teach, to help in a clinic, to help run evangelism meetings, to give Bible studies, to help in orphanages. You know, the description of what they can do is unlimited.
And there may be some viewers that are watching that may do some of these things for a living and may want to help. What are some of the qualities that you're looking for in volunteers?
Adaptability, a willingness to go and serve somebody else in a non-judgmental mental set and so forth. Basically, it's just willingness to go.
Well, John, thank you so much. This information has been very helpful.
Thank you.
And when we continue, an Adventist pastor defends Sabbath observance.
Welcome back. Here's Steve Chavez with a preview of this week's edition of the Adventist Review.
In this week's cover story, Unrest Over a Rest Day, Andy Nash examines a phenomenon where some people suggest that observing the seventh-day Sabbath is no longer necessary. He writes in response to those who believe that our Sabbath rest was fulfilled in Christ and that we no longer need a weekly reminder of that fact. Nash, who is a lay pastor in Collegedale, Tennessee, as well as a columnist for the Adventist Review, examines 3 scripture references that some interpret to minimize the importance of the seventh-day Sabbath. You'll not only enjoy his conclusions, you'll also appreciate his reasoning and the historical and scriptural support he cites. This one's a keeper. If you haven't gotten acquainted with Dixel Rodriguez yet, you need to. She writes our column, Searching the Obvious. And in this month's column, The Anonymity of Warmth, she tells about a chance encounter that involves a bench by a small fountain, an open window in a music building, and a photo of a little girl holding a cello. I know you'll enjoy this piece. Dixel is one of my favorite columnists. Finally, our theology piece in this week's issue was written by Willie Hux, associate editor of Ministry Magazine. We all pray, but in this article, Hux identifies what he calls the most dangerous prayer. Read the article and see if you agree. Remember, all these articles and many more are found at our website, www.adventistreview.org. Happy reading.
Now let's turn to Megan Browner for this week's Adventist social media highlights.
This week, we continued our conversation about using social media in church outreach, specifically asking how church members can use social networks like Facebook and Twitter to make an impact. On Twitter, Ensemble said Adventists should follow people back and share links. HCNV suggested using city hashtags to start a trend and track tagged tweets. Music ZOBC advised posting retweetable content that friends would share. Mo Americanoid said Adventists should be practical, not preachy, and share messages on health and well-being. We're going to be talking about social networking in big cities more this week, so join the discussion on facebook.com/Adventist News, or use the hashtag #HowToReachBigCities on Twitter.
Larry Evans, the new editor of the Church's Stewardship Journal, has a preview of the current issue and an important reminder.
Stewardship is all about God's generosity. We have a tendency to get the story mixed up sometimes and even get it backwards. We sometimes begin talking about our generosity. By comparison, ours doesn't begin to be anything like God's. Here at the General Conference Stewardship Ministries Department, we believe God's generosity reaches into the hundreds of cultures with which we work. We must adapt our work accordingly, but once any of us grasp the awesome reality of God's kindness, we want to respond in very specific ways. The Dynamic Steward is a quarterly journal that addresses this. It was originally written for stewardship leaders around the world. But as the new editor, I want you to know that we are expanding our audience. Students, business executives, pastors, teachers, young adults, and all church members are now part of our audience. Well, why not? Stewardship is all about life, and our responsibility as managers of God's resources. This journal contains stewardship sermons, insightful articles by theologians, business leaders, and young adults from around the world. It is designed to be educational, informative, and inspirational. The good news, it's free. And I'm biased, no question about that, but it does provide a picture that you often do not see. And I do mean it's free when we send it to you electronically. If you would like a free subscription to the quarterly journal, just call or write to us.
Still ahead on Adventist News Network, a grassroots group of young people share their passion for revival. And up next, this week's Tech Corner.
As I was reading through The Great Hope, these words caught my attention. The framers of the Constitution of the United States recognized the eternal principle that man's relation with God is above human legislation. The Bible was held by the Pilgrim Fathers as the foundation of faith. Here's why this vision brings hope to me. I have seen the fruits of this faith and this vision in the lives of my grandparents who sacrificed their lives in Soviet Russia to protect the freedom to choose how to worship, to defend the oppressed, to defend the minorities. It gave meaning to their lives.
Welcome back. This week's Tech Corner comes from a design professor at the Church's Montemorelos University in Mexico.
I'd like to share with you the use of a tool that's often overlooked in word processors. This is the tab ruler. Say you have a church bulletin or a similar type of program that you need to create. As you begin to lay it out, you realize there needs to be a left aligned piece, a center aligned piece, and a right aligned piece, all on the same line. Instead of adding a series of spaces or tabs to achieve this, simply add one tab to separate these items and then add or delete the necessary left, center, or right aligned tab stops on your ruler at the top to make your text align just where you want it. If you want to set your tab stops for more than one line at a time, Simply select the desired lines and adjust your tab rulers then. If you're writing out all your text, you probably want to set your tab rulers from the very beginning so that whenever you hit return, you'll be able to take those settings to the next line. However, if you are pasting your text from another document, it's possible the text also copied the tab stop settings from the previous document, so you'll want to wait until you have your text in your desired document and then set the tab stops. And that's my tip. Happy tabbing!
Once the hub of spiritual reformation after the Middle Ages, Europe today is increasingly secular. The generation of Youth for Christ wants to reclaim the region's early enthusiasm for revival.
Historically, God has used Europe to initiate some major movements.
Europe has a very special history.
Europe is pivotal in terms of revival and reformation.
Europe has been the place where the Protestant Reformation has begun.
We see God raise up the Wesley brothers,
Zwingli,
John Wycliffe,
Calvin,
Martin Luther,
that completely changed the entire face of Europe. The Reformation was spread from Europe to the whole world.
You can't deny the evidence and the fact that the early church and the movements that happened in Europe had a huge impact on our society.
Today, Europe is a very secular place.
They have lost the spirit that the Reformers had.
Due to things like the French Revolution, people have really moved away from the church.
For quite some time, the leadership of GYC has really wanted to showcase to the world that there are young people out there in every country doing the work of Christ. The summer of 2012, we will hold a conference in Europe. We've already reached out to young people, the grassroots of Europe, and we're working with them to plan this. We're going to have inspiration. We're going to have training.
GYC is able to provide resources that are not easily available and accessible to the youth of Europe.
With the GYC coming to Europe, we can see that there are an army of young people here.
If such an army can come together and they can be rightly trained, then I think GYC can be an enormous tool.
For GYC to come here to Europe, this is a great opportunity to bring this all together and give it a definite direction.
Young people want to come together to see how they can be trained, to see how they can reach their territory.
We can rekindle that Reformation in our generation.
It's time for action. There is a bigger need than ever for us to go out and to witness, for us to be sharing the truth, because the time is right.
When we come back, the news you reported this week, and later in the program we find out how a paleontologist studying fossil whales in Peru is serving the Adventist Church.
I don't remember any moments that my parents hugged me or held my hands, or I never heard that they say, "Liana, I love you." I was struggling with a severe depression.
Welcome back. Let's turn to Sergio Gonzalez to find out what you reported this week.
Welcome to iShare, where you bring us the news. Today's story comes from iShare reporter Ruth. Ruth told us about opening the house she's building in Samal, Philippines as a place of worship and Bible study for community members. For the last few months, Ruth held morning worship, afternoon Bible studies, and evening worship with meals included. She routinely fit 50 people into her house at one time. She even recently had the blessing of watching 43 individuals being baptized last month, including 9 young people she had mentored. Her favorite story from her time in the Philippines is about a 16-year-old with special needs named B-Boy. As the mother of an autistic child, she knew no one should underestimate his interest and ability to learn. She said B-Boy exceeded everyone's expectations to become an active member of the Bible study group. He joined 8 other young people in baptism this year, and he is continuing regular Bible studies with his local pastor. And to recap last week's winners of our video camera drawing, we have Melanie Barber, Kevin Kadipo, and Julene Barrington. Do you have a story of your own you'd like to share? Upload your videos and photos at news.adventist.org/iShare.
For Adventists, conflict between mainstream science and a biblical worldview can serve as motivation to more deeply study God's creation. Justin Woods introduces us to a church institute doing just that.
The Geoscience Research Institute, or GRI, is an institute of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. But it is not based at the church's world headquarters near Washington, D.C. Instead, it is in Southern California on the campus of Loma Linda University, with branch offices in Brazil, France, Argentina, and South Korea. Scientists at GRI study areas at the interface between science and faith. Disagreements are inevitable between naturalistic science and the Bible's clear record of God's interaction with His creation over the course of history. As Christians, GRI scientists are unsurprised by discrepancies between different interpretations of data. They see the tension between naturalistic explanations and the Bible-based Christian faith as encouragement to explore the creation further. While the Institute is based in California, GRI scientists do much of their work in other places. For example, GRI paleontologist Raul Esperante, a native of Spain, is currently in Peru researching fossil whales. Other scientists are teaching classes at various Adventist universities around the world. So, where in the world is GRI? While the main office is located in California, scientists working at the Institute serve a global church and study different aspects of creation across the globe. You might encounter a GRI scientist just about anywhere on Earth. To learn more, visit www.grisda.org.
Now let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history. This week, the World Church's first woman treasurer is elected.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On February 4 and 5 in 1882, a meeting of Adventist church leaders took place in Lancaster, Massachusetts. It had been called by S.N. Haskell to consider the possibility of establishing an SDA school at some point in New England, as Haskell wrote. At the meeting there was considerable support for the proposal, and the result was that 2 months later, in April 1882, South Lancaster Academy, the forerunner of Atlantic Union College, opened its doors to students. On February 6 in 1864, the first Seventh-day Adventist church in Canada was organized at Westbury, Quebec. At that time, Quebec was a strong and flourishing mission of the Adventist Church. On February 7 in 1864, O.R.L. Crozier published an article on the sanctuary in the Millerite journal, The Day Star. It presented the insights of Hiram Edson into what had actually happened on October 22, 1844. This article and the debate it stirred up was a crucial step in the process by which Seventh-day Adventists reached their understanding of the sanctuary doctrine. On February 7 in 1881, the 9th General Conference session was held, and it elected Mrs. Adelia P. Van Horn, the GC Treasurer, a post she held for 2 years. She was the first woman to be an officer of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, the first of 3 women to hold the office of GC Treasurer. That was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching Adventist News Network. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
In the meantime, look for us on Facebook. You can connect with other people around the world and find links to all of our stories, photos, and videos. Just visit Facebook/Adventist News.
And as always, you can visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next week, God bless. done. Yeah.